Welcome. Today, we're doing a comprehensive analysis of Corovantis commercial intelligence. We are focusing entirely on, well, one of the toughest, highest stakes parts of project management, and that is construction cash flow forecasting, specifically how it's handled by the Corovantis application.
That's right. And we should be clear from the start.
We're not talking about just simple budgeting, are we?
Not at all. In the world of, massive engineering projects, huge infrastructure builds, cash flow it's more than a metric.
It's the heartbeat.
It is the absolute moment-to-moment heartbeat of the entire operation.
And if you mispredict the timing of your cash, even by a month, that can trigger some serious problems.
Oh, absolutely. Liquidity crises, stalled procurement, schedule delays. It can completely derail a project's financial viability.
And the variables are just relentless. You have retention holdbacks, advance payments, schedules that seem to change every single week.
And that's really the chaos that this application is designed to tame.
So what are we looking at here? What is this solution?
It's a React-based application, but fundamentally it's an intelligence tool. Its job is to pull out those crucial nuggets of knowledge from all that noisy project data.
So it's a shortcut.
It's a direct shortcut. It moves construction professionals away from, risky spreadsheets or pure guesswork and puts them right into statistically rigorous, defendable prediction. It's about being well-informed instantly.
Okay. So our mission in this analysis is to take you right into the engine room of this software. We really want to understand the DNA of its output.
And to do that, you have to start with the foundation.
The mathematical core. Because if you can understand the models Corovantis uses to generate its forecast curves, you get the whole philosophy behind its predictions.
That's exactly it.
Okay, let's unpack that starting point. I mean, anyone in construction, when they think about spending money over time, they picture that classic S-curve.
Right. A slow start, then a really steep climb during peak construction, and then it tapers off at the end.
But Corovantis doesn't just give you one way to draw that curve. It offers 4 distinct industry-validated methods. So let's start with the default, the one that big contracting firms use most, the DHSS model.
The DHSS model, yeah. It's often called Hudson's formula. It is absolutely the established industry standard, especially for public sector work and, large-scale infrastructure.
And it's the default in Corovantis for a reason.
It is. It's because it gives the user the highest degree of customization for that S-curve shape. It respects that, no two projects are exactly the same. User experience is a big part of it.
And that customization is everything. So how does a project manager actually bend that S-curve to fit their own project? Say, one with a heavily front-loaded design phase.
It all comes down to 2 very powerful tuning parameters. They give you this granular control over the curve's geometry. Now, the formula itself is long, but the user really only cares about 2 inputs, the C parameter and the K parameter.
Okay, so let's start with C, the C parameter.
The C parameter basically governs the curve's skew. You can adjust it from -1 to +1.
So if I'm running a project and I know procurement is going to be huge and fast, a big chunk of cost right at the beginning, what do I do with C?
You'd use a positive C value, something like 0.7 or 0.8. A positive C creates what we call a front-loaded forecast.
It pushes the steep part of the curve earlier.
Exactly. It moves the point of inflection closer to the project's start date. This is absolutely essential for things like design build or big EPC contracts where you have massive costs for equipment and design right at the start.
In the reverse?
If C is negative, say NACA 0.5, the curve becomes backloaded. It pushes the bulk of the costs out later. You'd need that for contracts with maybe phased handovers or really long testing periods where the final payments are deferred.
And that simple choice immediately changes a company's entire liquidity projection.
Oh, massively. If you just guess and use a balanced curve where C is 0 for a front-loaded job, you will critically underestimate your immediate cash needs.
Okay, so that's C for the skew. What about the other one, the K parameter?
The K parameter controls the steepness, or you could think of it as the velocity of the spend. It's often preset to 10, which is typical for most construction periods.
But you can change it.
You can. Adjusting K lets you make the S-curve steeper for faster execution and faster spending, or shallower for a slower project, all without changing that overall skew you set with C.
So the DHSS model is really for users who need to inject their own specialized knowledge of the project right into the shape of the forecast.
That's its strength. It prioritizes customizable human input. It's the expert's choice when they know their project is unique.
But sometimes you just need a quick standard estimate, maybe for internal planning or an initial bid. You don't want any subjective input.
Right. And that takes us to the second option, Bromellow's polynomial model.
How does that one work?
Well, the Bromelo model is the complete opposite of DHSS in terms of complexity for the user. It uses a very simple, fixed cubic function.
And the key distinction here is what?
It provides a fixed, standard S-curve.
Meaning no tuning knobs at all.
None. Zero parameters. You just put in the contract value and the duration, and Corvantis generates that standard cubic S-curve. That's it.
So why would a sophisticated user ever choose that over the customizable DHSS?
Standardization and speed. I mean, if you're comparing, say, 50 small projects for feasibility, you want to measure them all with the exact same yardstick.
A defensible metric.
Exactly. Bromelo is perfect for quick estimates or initial bids where you haven't finalized the execution plan yet, or just for simple, high-volume projects where you expect the cost to follow a pretty average industry pattern.
So if you want to avoid introducing any human bias with those C&K parameters, Bromelo is your model.
It's the one.
All right, now we're shifting gears pretty dramatically. We're moving away from what is essentially curve fitting with polynomials, and we're getting into genuine statistical rigor. Let's talk about Kenley's logistic model.
This is really where Corvantis flexes its data science muscle. The Kenley model uses what's called the logit function. It's a statistical approach, not a polynomial one.
And the difference is?
Statistically, the logit function just tends to give you a much, much tighter fit to actual historical project data compared to those traditional cubic S-curves. It's designed purely for high accuracy.
And the performance metric you mentioned from the source material is, well, it's genuinely striking, especially for construction.
It really is. The documentation points to a median fit accuracy of a 2.5% standard deviation.
Okay, let's translate that. What does 2.5% standard deviation actually mean for a project?
It implies that if the model is trained correctly, in the median case, your actual cash flow will fall within 2.5% of what was predicted. That level of precision. It can dramatically reduce the risk premium you need for liquidity. It makes financing so much more predictable.
That's a huge deal in an industry famous for 15–20% variances. But how does it get that accuracy with just two parameters? We have alpha and beta.
Right, so alpha, which is Ea, is the position parameter. It's usually centered around 0, and it basically sets the starting point of that rapid spending phase.
And
beta, or bait, is the steepness parameter, typically around 1.6. It controls the speed of that central part of the S-curve. But notice the simplicity here.
It's different from DHSS.
Very. Kenley uses two parameters derived from statistical fittings, so they're focused purely on predictive power. DHSS uses two parameters, C and K, that are based on user judgment. So Kenley's model is really for those who demand mathematically proven rigor above all else.
Okay, so that brings us to the final model, and this one seems to be the most sophisticated because it integrates risk directly into the forecast, the Kaka and Price model.
This is truly the leading edge. We're moving beyond what we call deterministic forecasting.
Predicting a single outcome.
Right. And we're moving into risk-adjusted forecasting. The Kaka and Price model in Corvantis is a risk-adjusted polynomial, but it has stochastic elements built right into it.
Okay, stop there. We promised to avoid jargon. Can you explain stochastic elements in plain English?
Good point. Okay, so a deterministic model, like Bromelo, gives you one answer. Based on these inputs, this is the curve.
A single line on a graph.
Exactly. A stochastic model acknowledges uncertainty. Think of it like this. A deterministic model tells you a die has sides numbered 1 to 6. A stochastic model rolls the die 10,000 times and tells you the probability of rolling a specific number may be adjusted for external factors.
And in construction, those external factors are risks.
They are. Weather delays, supply chain issues, labor shortages. This model incorporates that kind of weighted randomness to suggest a curve that already accounts for those likely variations.
So it's not just one curve, it's generating a probability distribution around a curve based on how much risk you think there is.
Precisely. And the genius of the implementation here is that the user only has to interact with one beautifully simple input, a single risk factor, which goes from 0 to 1.
And how does that work?
If you set the factor to 0.5, you get a balanced mid-range curve. But if you're a conservative project manager, working in a high-risk area, you might set it lower, maybe 0.2.
And that would do what?
That generates a much more conservative forecast. It anticipates you'll need buffers, it pushes costs later. On the flip side, an aggressive manager might use 0.8 to generate a very optimistic, faster spend curve.
The implication of that is massive. This model is specifically for projects where you need to bake the risk assessment in from day one.
Yes. It lets the manager present a single defensible curve to the bank or the client, knowing that their operational risk assessment is already part of the calculation. The risk conversation becomes proactive, not reactive.
All right, understanding the math is step one, but even the best model is useless if the data is bad. Garbage in, garbage out.
Always.
So Core Ventus needs to ingest the project's financial structure and its schedule. Let's talk about how users actually feed the beast. There are two main paths: system integration and manual input. Let's start with what the big contractors use, Primavera P6 integration.
You have to link cost forecasting directly to the schedule. It's just non-negotiable in modern construction. Cash flow is inseparable from time.
Right, if a big activity like steel erection gets delayed.
Then the cost tied to that activity must also be delayed, and that has all sorts of knock-on effects. So Core Ventus solves this by accepting cost-loaded Primavera P6 schedules. You just upload the standard XCR format file. That's the Oracle Exchange import.
So the project planner uploads this, often huge, XER file. What does the Core Ventus engine pull out of it automatically?
It's designed for speed. It immediately populates all the big picture parameters for the forecast, the total contract value, the overall project duration, the project name, and the critical start and end dates.
So it saves hours of data entry right away.
Instantly.
But the real magic, the real insight, is in the mechanism itself. The documentation says it's explicitly activity-based. Why is that distinction so important?
It's the difference between guessing and precision. A simple S-curve model often just assumes costs are spread evenly over time based on a general curve shape.
But an activity-based model is different.
Far superior. It distributes specific costs precisely across the planned durations of each individual activity from that P6 schedule. Let's say you have a 6-month foundation activity that costs $10 million.
Okay.
The system makes sure that $10 million is spent only during those 6 months, no matter what some arbitrary S-curve might suggest for that period. It links the finance directly to the operational reality of the schedule.
Which means if the schedule changes next week, the financial forecast changes instantly with it.
Exactly. You avoid that financial lag. It eliminates the single biggest source of error in construction finance, which is decoupling the cost from the actual physical work.
Is there a verification step?
Yes, and it's crucial. Before the forecast is finalized, the user sees the schedule summary. It details the number of activities, the current progress, a cost breakdown, all pulled from the P6 file. So you get to confirm the data integrity before you commit.
That covers the big enterprise users. But a lot of smaller or specialized projects still run on spreadsheets. What about the manual data import route?
The manual import is built for flexibility. It supports standard spreadsheet files, your .xlsx, older .xls files, and even simple .csv files. So it's very compatible.
The documentation seems to really stress data integrity here. How does Core Ventus make sure the data coming from some random spreadsheet is actually usable?
The focus is on structure. Core Ventus gives you a pre-formatted Excel template to download. This is essential because the system needs very specific mandated headers for the columns.
So users have to map their data to that template.
They do. If they don't, or if they change those required headers, they'll get a data integrity warning.
Okay, let's go through those required fields. This seems to be where the real financial journey is captured. Why these 9 specific columns?
Absolutely. They map the complex path of cash from a gross claim to what you actually receive. So first you have month and label. Simple enough.
Then gross valuation.
That's the total value of work you've had certified for the month. It's your top line claim. Then retention deducted. This is the critical holdback, usually 5 or 10%, that the client is allowed to keep.
The first deduction from your claim.
Right. Then you have advance payment, which is the lump sum you get at the start, and crucially, advance recovery. This details how much is being deducted this month to pay back that advance.
So that's a separate deduction mechanism from retention?
A completely separate cash event.
Yeah.
Then you have retention released. This is cash inflow. This is the money held back that's now being paid out to you, usually in 2 parts.
And that all leads to the bottom line.
The net payment. This is the actual cash transfer. It's your gross valuation minus retention deducted, minus advance recovery, plus any retention released. And finally, cumulative net, just a running total.
And it's so important to separate advance recovery and retention released. They often get lumped together, but one is paying back a debt and the other is realizing delayed profit.
Precisely. And by forcing those discrete fields, the model truly understands the project's liquidity position. Once you upload that file, the imported data instantly replaces any calculated S-curve, and you get immediate feedback.
Okay, so Corvantis is clearly built for the real world of large international contracts. That means dealing with financial rules that go way beyond simple cost allocation.
Yes, complex contractual mechanisms.
And nothing is more critical to a contractor's liquidity than how a project handles holdbacks or retention.
Retention management is often the single most mismanaged part of construction cash flow. It's the money, usually 5 to 10% of the contract value, held back by the client as a security deposit.
And Corvantis helps model that.
It lets you configure the percentage, but more importantly, it implements an automatic time-based release schedule for it.
And that release schedule is tied to the defects liability period, or DLP.
Absolutely. The system specifically models the DLP. This is the period, maybe 12 or 24 months after the project is finished, where the contractor is liable for fixing any snags.
And the retention is released after that.
Typically in two halves. Half when the project is practically complete, and the final half after the DLP expires. The application makes sure the forecast reflects that huge time lag. For a 4-year project, your final cash might not come in until year 6.
If you don't model that, you're massively overstating your expected cash position in the final year.
You are. It's a classic mistake.
Let's switch to regional requirements. The source material singles out advance payments, especially for GCC contracts. Why is that feature so important globally?
Advance payments are just standard practice in the Gulf Cooperation Council region. There's substantial upfront payments, sometimes 10% or more of the contract value, given to the contractor to mobilize.
So it's a big cash injection right at the start.
It is, which is great for liquidity, but the tricky part for forecasting is the recovery mechanism.
You have to pay it back.
Exactly. The contract usually says you have to pay it back pro rata based on the percentage of work you get certified each month.
And Corvantis handles that.
It includes the necessary feature for pro rata recovery calculation. So every month, the system calculates the correct proportional amount that has to be deducted from your gross valuation to repay that advance. If you fail to model that accurately, you're over-forecasting your net cash for the entire middle phase of the project.
That kind of detail seems to extend to currency support as well. If this is a global tool, it has to handle multiple currencies.
It does. It supports the major project currencies, so GBP, USD, and EUR. But importantly, reflecting its strength in the Middle East, it supports all GCC currencies natively.
So you can run the forecast in the local currency.
Yes, SAR for Saudi Arabia, AED for the UAE, QAR, KWD, OMR, BHD, all of them. This just eliminates the need for external, often arbitrary currency conversions and makes the outputs immediately ready for local stakeholders.
Okay, we've built a really robust foundation here with deterministic math and practical contract mechanics.
Right.
But the most valuable forecast isn't the one that tells you what will happen. It's the one that tells you what might happen. Modern project controls have to embrace uncertainty.
They absolutely do.
And this is why Corvantis incorporates probabilistic analysis, starting with the Monte Carlo simulation.
Monte Carlo simulation is the gold standard for quantifying risk and dealing with uncertainty. Instead of just giving you one fixed forecast, which you know is wrong the moment anything changes.
It runs multiple scenarios.
Thousands of them. It introduces random variables within parameters you define, and it generates a probability map of all the potential outcomes.
And the user controls the rigor of this calculation, the number of scenarios.
Yes. You can choose the computational depth. You can run 5,000, 10,000, or a deeply rigorous 50,000 iterations.
What's the trade-off?
5,000 is quick for a fast check. 50,000 gives you much higher statistical confidence, especially at the tail ends of the distribution, which is what you need when you're looking at high-impact, low-probability events. For any major financial reporting, 50,000 is really the standard.
Okay, so the simulation runs, and then we get these probabilistic outcomes, the P metrics. We have to translate this for the construction manager. What do P10, P50, and P90 confidence intervals actually mean for planning liquidity?
Think of them as confidence boundaries. The P50 is the median. It's the most likely outcome. If you run 10,000 simulations, the P50 is the point where half the results were worse and half were better.
So that's your base case, the one you probably submit to the bank.
Typically, yes. Now, P10 is your optimistic scenario. Only 10% of the simulation results came out better than this. This is your best case execution. Everything goes right.
And P90 is the critical one.
It is. P90 is the pessimistic, risk-adjusted scenario. It means 90% of the results were better than this point. For a project manager, P90 is the budget you must be prepared for.
So if your P90 shows a massive cash deficit in month 18,
With 90% certainty that you need to have standby liquidity arranged to cover that potential gap. It moves planning from what we hope happens to what we must be prepared for.
and crucially, Core Vantis makes this high-level analysis instantly shareable.
Immediately. The moment the simulation is done, those P metrics, the charts, the data, they're all automatically packaged into the PDF and Excel exports. There's zero friction between running the advanced model and delivering the risk documentation.
Okay, so from quantifying risk, let's move to leveraging advice. Core Vantis introduces what it calls AI-powered insights. This sounds like an interactive virtual consultant.
It really is. The AI persona is specifically defined as an expert QS persona, a quantity surveyor. It's powered by advanced language models, and it's designed to give you narrative intelligence and guidance.
So it answers the subjective questions a manager would normally ask a senior colleague.
That's the idea.
But AI is only useful if it understands the context of the project. How does it know the advice is relevant to my specific project?
It's context aware. Before it gives you an answer, it processes your specific project parameters, the contract value, the DHSS settings you chose, the duration, retention rate, even your Monte Carlo results.
So its guidance is rooted in your inputs.
Yes. For example, if your DHSS curve is extremely flat, the AI might prompt you and say, based on this slow spend profile, have you budgeted enough liquidity for a potential late-stage acceleration?
That's powerful. It's not generic advice. It's a critique of your specific forecast. What kind of topics can you ask it about?
You can probe all the common pain points. Questions about optimizing your S-curve, assessing funding gaps based on that P90 metric, how to set up retention for maximum cash benefit, or identifying common risks for a project of this size. It's about getting instant access to codified industry knowledge.
And there's a fascinating technical detail here. The multi-provider support. They don't lock you into one AI model.
That's a great example of modern application design. Core Vantis lets you choose your preferred model. Gemini, OpenAI, Claude, or OpenRouter.
So you can choose based on cost or compliance or just which one you think works best.
Exactly. It does require you to configure your own API key in the settings, but that flexibility is key.
Finally, in this section, let's talk about connecting a project to institutional knowledge using the Pinecone similarity search. How does this use historical data to help with current decisions?
This is really cutting-edge data science. It uses vector databases. When a project is saved, all its parameters are converted into a dense mathematical representation called a project embedding.
So it's like a mathematical DNA for the project.
That's a perfect way to put it. And these embeddings, this DNA, are all stored in the Pinecone vector database.
And the point of the similarity search.
It gives you rapid benchmarking intelligence. When you're starting a new bid, you can run a query against Pinecone. The system uses vector math to find projects from your history with the most similar DNA.
So you can instantly see how similar projects actually performed in the past.
Precisely. You get objective data on their actual performance, which lets you make informed adjustments to your forecast right there and then, instead of just relying on gut feeling.
And like the AI, this is an optional feature that requires its own API key configuration in the settings.
Yes, it's intelligence on demand.
We've covered a lot of ground on the math and the intelligence. Now let's get into the practical side of using this tool. How does Core Vantis handle outputs, storage, and sharing? Let's start with the essential task: data export and stakeholder readiness.
A forecast is useless if you can't present it clearly. So Core Vantis gives you two distinct professional export formats for different audiences. First, you have the PDF reports.
These are the glossy, client-facing documents, I take it?
That's right. They're built for presentation. They have highly legible charts, the schedule summaries, and critically, a simplified visual presentation of the Monte Carlo analysis.
So it shows the P10, P50, and P90 ranges graphically.
Exactly. It communicates the risk clearly without drowning the reader in raw data.
And the second format, the Excel workbook, serves a very different purpose.
The Excel output is for your internal finance teams, your auditors, your cost engineers. These workbooks have the full, granular monthly breakdowns.
And they include the formulas.
Crucially, yes, they contain the underlying formula so you have maximum transparency. And they also include the raw data set from the Monte Carlo simulation so other analysts can run their own checks. It's all about total auditability.
Okay, moving to storage. In a modern distributed team, just saving a file on your laptop isn't enough. Core Vantis addresses this with Google Drive integration.
This is what unlocks cloud storage and accessibility. The main benefit is the auto-sync functionality. As a project manager is making tweaks, the updated forecast and all its results are just seamlessly and automatically uploaded to Drive.
How does a user set that up?
It uses secure oath credentials. You need a client ID and an API key configured in the settings. It's standard, secure protocol. There's a technical note that the Google Drive API needs to be enabled, and you have to authorize the local host address if you're running it locally.
So once you're connected, you can save projects as JSON files to Drive or load files like XRR schedules directly from Drive.
Exactly. It makes cross-device access and remote team collaboration completely seamless.
What about managing forecasts locally? A manager might be running 5 different scenarios for one contract. How does the app handle that?
It's designed to be very convenient. Projects are stored in the user's browser local storage.
Which means you can save an unlimited number of projects.
Yes, it's perfect for scenario testing. And Corvantis tracks the metadata for each saved version, the date, the contract value, and importantly, which model you used, like Kenley or DHSS, for that specific forecast.
And getting back into a saved project is easy.
It's a one-click load, and this instantly restores the full context. So if you ran a 50,000 iteration Monte Carlo, which might take a few minutes.
You don't have to rerun it every time.
Exactly. The one-click load restores all the input parameters and the previous Monte Carlo results. It avoids all that repeated heavy computation.
And for backing up or sharing without the cloud?
You can just download projects as standard JSON files using export to computer, and you can upload those files with import projects. Simple portability is always preserved.
Finally, let's just peek under the hood. What's the technical foundation that powers all of this?
The stack is very modern and performance-focused. It's built on React 19 plus TypeScript, which gives it structural robustness. It uses Vite 6 as the build tool, which is known for its speed.
And the charts.
All the visualizations, the S-curves, and probability charts are handled by Recharts 3.4. It's a very powerful, low-latency setup.
And for enterprises thinking about deployment, there's a key design philosophy here about those advanced features.
Yes, and this is important. The design is modular. The core cash flow forecasting and P6 import features run completely independently. All advanced features are optional.
So the app runs perfectly well without any API keys at all.
Perfectly well. The AI, Google Drive, and Pinecone integrations are only needed if you want to use those specific services. It gives enterprises maximum flexibility and security control.
This has been a really extensive analysis of the Corvantis commercial intelligence application. It's revealed a tool that is both, well, mathematically precise and highly practical.
I think so.
To summarize what we found, we saw this incredible range of mathematical rigor available. You've got the highly customizable DHSS model, but you can go all the way to the high-accuracy statistical rigor of Kenley's logit model with that remarkable 2.5% standard deviation.
We also established that indispensable link between finance and the operational schedule through the activity-based Primavera P6 integration. That just eliminates a huge source of error.
And then we saw how the application moves into proactive intelligence. It's not just quantifying risk with Monte Carlo simulations to give you those critical P10, P50, and P90 ranges.
It's also offering that context-aware guidance through the expert QS AI persona using models like Gemini or Claude.
So Corvantis really does seem to bridge high-level data science like stochastic modeling and vector databases with the granular real-world requirements of construction finance, like pro-rata recovery and retention handling. It delivers a very sophisticated tool that is, I think, deceptively straightforward to use.
It really represents the next generation of predictive commercial management. It's moving the industry way beyond simple linear projections.
So as we conclude this exploration of the source material, we want to leave you with one final provocative thought to consider. Given that Corvantis allows construction managers to choose between 4 distinct mathematical models, ranging from a simple fixed curve to a complex risk-adjusted polynomial, how might the increasing sophistication and accuracy of these underlying algorithms change the fundamental relationship between a construction cost professional and their perceived expert judgment over the next 5 years? Will the machine's prediction eventually replace, or will it merely augment, the decades of human experience that have traditionally guided these monumental projects?